Hello and welcome back to the FSF Podcast. I am Tim. I am your host. And this is a reminder that this show is a show that is made by nerds for nerds. Now, our guest in the nerdatorium today is a guy who's got a track record, I think, unlike any other of my previous guests. Now, I've talked with journalists before. I've talked with a politician or two before. And I've obviously talked with quite a few novelists, but I've never talked to one who's all three. So he's joining us today to talk about his new novel, which is called Freebourne, which, from things that I have read, has likened it to being the result of a mixture of Midsomer Murders, a show on the BBC that my wife really does enjoy, and the movie The Matrix. I'm kind of curious to see how that comparison works out. Maybe he has answers. Maybe he likes the comparison too. Either way, help me welcome Salman Shaheen to the FSF Podcast. Welcome to the show, Salman.
Hi there, Tim. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm very excited to have a chance to talk with you. Like I said in the intro, you have a really, I think, a unique perspective on a few topics based on your life course and travel. So I'm kind of curious to talk with you a little bit about that. Now, one of the things that I do on this show, Salman, every time I have a new guest come on, is I want to know their origin story, because for a couple of reasons. Number one, I love to know what makes a person tick and why they do what they do, why they're investing themselves and their time and their energy into doing this thing. But then also, I'm a big nerd, and nerds love origin stories. So it kind of scratches, both areas there. So in the story of Salman Shaheen, what got you here? What made you decide, I want to be a journalist, a politician, a novelist?
Well, I mean, that's a big question, isn't it? And I mean, I love origin stories too, absolutely, completely. And I guess it really all goes back to my family in India. My grandmother was a very prominent writer and critic of Urdu literature in the subcontinent before Indian independence. And she grew up in Mysore in the south of India. My father was born there, and they moved. They took the journey north to Pakistan shortly after partition, on the day that Gandhi was assassinated. And
oh wow.
India was aflame with violence at that time. Thousands of people were being killed in both directions from both sides. All different communities were up in flame, and they barely escaped with their lives. I have to say, they were hidden under the train seats as militants with guns were boarding the train. But they wanted to make that perilous journey because my family wanted to be part of the new nation of Pakistan as it was founded, and become part of that nation building experience. And they were writers. They were all writers. Both my grandfather and my grandmother. My grandmother, in particular, had gained quite a bit of prominence in India and then later in Pakistan, where she became one of the pioneers of Urdu literature of the time. Now, I never met her. She passed away long before I was born. But when my father came to the UK, he was 20 years old when he came to Britain and met my English mother and settled down here. And he became an English teacher, teaching English literature to high school kids in Suffolk, in rural Suffolk, which is, a beautiful, very quiet location, not dissimilar to the location of Freebourne. And, I remember him as an English teacher, a lover of words, of literature, passing on all that love of language, of literature, that my grandmother passed to him and through him to me. And I remember, at 6 years old, he was reading me Shakespeare, he was reading me The Lord of the Rings, and I just sort of fell in love with language, with this world building, not just building these new worlds and these stories, but just how you can play with language to do so. And it inspired a lifelong love in me of writing. And, first of all, that was writing scraps of, short stories on little scraps of paper. And I think I must have ripped off Tolkien several times, in various different, fan fiction I probably wrote. And none of that ever went anywhere. But, I always kept wanting to come back to writing. And I became a writer in my career. I became a journalist, writing nonfiction, writing stories about real things that were happening, real injustices in the world that, I hope to sort of shine a light on through journalism. But always, my first love has always been to come back to fiction And and I'm very pleased to finally have Freebourne, my first novel coming out, and I hope it honors that literary legacy that I come from, and I can't wait to hear what people make of it.
Okay. So speaking of Freeborn, and that's a great background, by the way. There's a lot packed in there, with just your family legacy and everything they were doing over in India during the time of partition. So, but since you mentioned the book, let's talk about Freeborn and tell our audience about it and why they should be so interested in picking it up.
Well, this is Freeborne. It's coming out in the UK on the 28th of October, in the US on the 1st of November, and it starts out as a murder mystery. You can read it cover to cover. You can think you're going to get a murder mystery. In Freeborne, our protagonist, he's divorced and unemployed. He's just found out his wife's having an affair with his best friend. So he up sticks and leaves. He sells his company. He sells his house. He moves from London to this quiet little town of Freeborne, looking to start a new life. But the moment he steps off the train, he discovers the body of a woman lying in the snow. And he has come to Freeborne, this quiet little town that's never seen a murder before in 100 years, and is immediately suspected by everyone in this town of committing the crime, because he's the only person at the scene. And it begins as his attempt to clear his name, essentially, and start this new life. But it's not your conventional murder mystery. And as you alluded to, people have described it as Midsomer Murders meets The Matrix. Another reviewer described it as Black Mirror meets Broadchurch, and I think Black Mirror is very apt. It's sci-fi. It's a sci-fi murder mystery. It's set in the near future. I mean, we're not talking about androids and spaceships, but we are talking about several decades in the future, where technology has evolved to a point that it has taken us forward from where we are now in ways that are slightly frightening. And unless we have a grip on that, then what are we going to do? And Freeborne, as a sci-fi novel, essentially at its core, has a twist. It has a really big twist, and I'm pretty confident in saying this twist has never been done before in any form of fiction ever. And
Yes.
Your readers, your listeners, your viewers are very astute, and they've probably read every single sci-fi novel, every single murder mystery. They've probably seen every show and every film, and they'll probably tell me I'm wrong. But I think, to my knowledge, I don't think this twist has been done before in fiction.
All right. Well, I look forward to getting. Like I said, we were talking pre-show, and I explained to Salman that I had got the digital copy of his book, and I've been looking through it and haven't got quite to the end yet. So I'm looking forward to that. I do like the pacing, the structure of the book so far. I'm probably about 4 or 5 chapters in, so I'm not too terribly far into it, but I'm enough to where I've got a kind of a grasp on a few of the characters and kind of what's going on, and so yeah, I do agree with what you're saying, and I do like the fact that there's that he is guilty. He hasn't had a chance to prove his name. I also kind of saw it as a little bit of because it's a Harrison Ford movie, and he just happens to be my favorite actor. The Fugitive, where I didn't kill it, and he's got to prove his name, but anyway, that's a whole other. That's a whole other.
That's the story as old as time. You can go back to Greek legend. You can go back. You can go to Shakespeare. You can go to all the basic stories that have ever been written. Of a stranger coming to town and being immediately suspected. But that's how it starts. Where it ends is somewhere quite crazy. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts when you get to the end.
Yeah. And the thing is, too, is that there's nothing wrong with using a trope. Tropes are fine. They're there for a reason, because they're things that people can grasp onto, and they can grasp the concept pretty easily. It's all in how you take that trope and then adjust it for your own purposes. That's where the real fun is. So, but because of you're talking about how technology is advancing, and you're talking in the book, kind of, like as you said, it kind of focuses on that a little bit. Excuse me. So I have a question for you, and I want to see what your thoughts are on this topic as a politician, as a journalist, and now as a novelist. I want to see what your thoughts are on the rampage, the runaway train that is AI right now. artificial intelligence. Do you view it differently for each one of the hats that you wear? Do you see it differently as a politician? You see it differently as a journalist, as a novelist? And how similar do you feel that the AI that we have today is similar to the tech that you used in your novel?
Well, it's a topic that Freebourne directly addresses, and every hat I wear, I hold the same opinion on it, which is, I mean, it's a bit, it's a bit like, the bit in Jurassic Park where Dr. Malcolm, says, the scientists have been so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they never stop to think if they should. And there are tons and tons of nerdy references in Freebourne. That is one of the references that crops up. It's twisted a little bit.
Love it.
Reference. And it's my view of technology, of AI, is it has wondrous potential and huge dangers if we don't apply the correct guardrails. Now, I'm not spoiling anything to say that Harry Coulson, the protagonist of Freebourne, is a tech entrepreneur. He's a mind tech entrepreneur. Now, mind tech doesn't exist at the moment, but in the world of Freebourne, it's just a couple of decades ahead, it does. This is technology, this is AI that can affect the way we think and feel. And he's working on this device called Polaris. That's what he wants to come to do, Freebourne, to start this new company. He's working on a device called Polaris, which can allow people to visualize their memories, see into the darkest recesses of their mind, and heal their trauma. And
that's cool.
And actually, the visual interface of Polaris. I mean, just for your nerds out there, the visual interface of Polaris. I use Planescape from Dungeons and Dragons. Sigil, the City of Doors is the UI, but that's just a little geeky reference. That's awesome. For anyone who gets it. But, now, ultimately the question is, if you could do that, would you do that? And if you could take away your pain, would it change what it means to be human? And what is it to be human anyway? Are we conditioned more by our nature or by nurture, by what society has made us or what we're born to be? And I mean, that's the debate that rages throughout Freebourne. And but where we are now with technology is not so very different. You could look at Freebourne and you could think, well, this is a cautionary tale about where we're going, but actually it's a cautionary tale about where we are now. You can look around you and the same debates are raging. You can look at Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, upon founding ChatGPT 5. He said he was scared, and he likened it to the Manhattan Project. And he said, I don't know what this can do. He was genuinely scared by what it could do. Now, we know what AI can do. It can, you look at workplaces across the country and across the world. Suddenly, they are by orders of magnitude becoming far more productive than they ever were. But all those humans who've been replaced, not necessarily getting other jobs. All the people that, all the graduates who 3 years ago were just starting off at university and thinking, what they were going to graduate into. 3 years later, suddenly those jobs don't exist anymore. So there's a huge downside to it as well, whilst also huge opportunities. And Freebourne talks about, how technology can alter our minds. Well, how is technology altering our minds now? It might not be directly interfacing with our brains like Polaris can, but what it is doing, all of us, when we go on Facebook, when we go on X, if anyone still uses X, it's
buried in this.
We are bubbled by algorithms. You like one thing, you get 100 things more like that, and suddenly we're in bubbles. We're sent down rabbit holes. Could be conspiracy theories, could be politics, which we're only exposed to things that are like us, and it changes the way we think. For better or worse, and that's scary. And there's and I'm not a Luddite. I certainly see the benefits of technology, but we need guardrails on that technology, and that's one of the cautionary notes that Freebourne has in it.
Okay, that's very cool. Yeah, I agree with a very large sentiment of what you just said. I think especially when it comes to the use of technology, when you're talking about the algorithms and things, and you watch one puppy video, next thing you know, you've got 20 puppy videos lined up.
If only it was only puppy videos out there and not.
If only. Show me videos of puppies, kittens, and little kids having fun, and I'll be a happy man. It's just
if you were running the world, then I wouldn't have any problem with the way technology is known. But sadly, other people are in charge at the moment.
Yeah, that's where the scary stuff comes in. Okay. But yeah, I agree with you a lot about what you're saying there about AI and technology. I don't mind the use of technology as long as AI is adjusting or assisting the creator, but not causing the creation.
Hmm.
That's I have a very large problem with AI generated actors, AI generated videos, where it's 100% it's AI, and
You
because
are
it
actually
worries me.
here interviewing me, right? This isn't an AI.
Yes. Oh no,
Yeah.
no. I'm not cool enough to have somebody make an AI of me yet. So I think we're at the moment. I think we're
One
fine.
day, one day.
But once this interview airs and they're like, "Yep, that's the guy," I'm just. Uh, but no, I think that we're in a place where we're at a tipping point where we have to decide which way we're going to go with this thing. Are we going to do that? Or are we going to head towards the what you're comparing there with the mind tech, or the I even think about when I was reading about through the notes that your agent sent and looking through some of the book. I also thought about this in a slightly outside form of what Philip K. Dick wrote about in the Minority Report. With using that as preemptive. You're going from the other side, but he was talking about preemptive stuff, and that the whole concept kind of worries me, because I'm like, well, we've started down this path. How do we put the guardrails up to protect everybody? So
that's the thing. The genie's out of the bottle. We are at the cusp of this technological revolution. It's moving faster than technology's ever moved before, and too fast for laws to catch up with. Politicians, I'm one of them. We take ages to deliberate on anything. We're very slow tankers to turn. And we're not moving. We're not going to be able to move fast enough to be able to regulate AI, and we will be playing catch up as this technology emerges. But I don't want to be all doom and gloom. I mean, the potential for wondrous advancement. Thinking about how AI can speed up medical research, for example.
Sure.
Or computing. All these calculations that could happen far faster than humans have ever been able to will just massively shorten the time that we can that it takes to produce technology and medical interventions and all sorts of other areas of society, which actually does improve us as humanity. But it's about how we use it, I think.
Agreed. Okay.
If anything, it's Freeborne's not a critique of technology; it's a critique of people and how we use that.
Okay, that's fair. I did pick up a new saying though from you just now. A large tanker to turn. That's going to get used later down the road. I like that.
You can have that one. You did say that all the rights to this interview are your property, so you've got that phrase now.
It's mine. Like Pokemon, got to catch them all. All right. So another thing I like to do, Salman, when I talk to somebody, I like to go check out them on social media, see what they're posting about, see what they're talking about, and other things. And I saw this post on your Facebook page that said, "I've been writing for over 3 decades in one form or other. Short stories, poetry, journalism, 3 novels that never saw the light of day." So what did your journey to become a published novelist teach you about you? What lessons were learned?
Well, it taught me that persistence pays off. 3 decades of writing novels that never go anywhere, and many of them were not commercial. They weren't sci-fi. They were far more literary in character. Although I would attest that Freeburne is a literary thriller. And I think with the weighty themes that it addresses, and the language that it uses is very literary, but it's smuggled in the confines of a murder mystery. Now, I found that I just love writing, and that's my advice to any writer out there. Really, is that you should do it because you love it, not because you expect to get published. And if you do get published, don't expect to sell any copies. It's a hard slog. But if you love doing it, then you haven't wasted a second of your time. And I mean, also, I had some fantastic advice from a writer. I'd gone to university. I was editing. I was literature editor of Varsity, which is the Cambridge University student newspaper. I had the good fortune of interviewing Jill Patton Walsh. She sadly passed away since, but she was one of my favorite authors, and became a very good mentor to me in my early writing. Now, she wrote a fantastic philosophical novel called Knowledge of Angels. She also wrote a couple of murder mystery series as well. And she said to me, you know, look, if you want to write about politics and philosophy, which is what I did want to write about ultimately, she said, you know, if you want to write about these weighty things, if you want to say something meaningful about the world, the best way to do it is to smuggle it in a murder mystery. And it took me a couple of decades after that to actually get around to following her advice, but I finally did. And rather than write, you know, all these esoteric things that I wanted to write and had been chipping away at for a long time, with a very long detour into journalism and you know, all the other stuff. I followed advice because ultimately, you know, people read murder mysteries. You know, people enjoy murder mysteries. Thrillers are, I think, second only or almost vying with romance to, you know, for the most popular genre. And I didn't really think the weighty philosophical and political themes of Freebourne would fit very well into a romance. So I went with murder mystery in the end.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think that's actually pretty genius advice to smuggle it into a murder mystery, because one of the things I do like about the murder mystery genre is that it helps you explore a lot of different things about people and how people interact with other people, especially if there's some level of guilt associated with that person, whether they're trying to exonerate themselves or, you know, flee from, you know, from whatever the situation is. But I do find that there's an opportunity to have those conversations, you know, like, you know, the political ramifications of things, the social ramifications of different things. I can see how that it could all be very nicely packed into a book, and you're talking about these things and people aren't necessarily realizing it perhaps until they get done with the book and they go, oh, now I get it. Now I see what happened.
Yeah. No, that's right. I mean, Freeborn is a bit of an onion, really. You can read it cover to cover, and you can have read a murder mystery. It starts out with a murder. There are suspects. More murders happen throughout the course of the novel, and ultimately, but by the time you get to the end of it, you will find out who killed these people, and you will probably have spent a long time trying to guess that as well, and you might have got it right, you might not. That's level one. If you want to level up, you know, I'm gonna use the phraseology of this. You know, if you want to level up and you want to read it as a critique on technology, and you can see it as a speculative fiction novel wrapped within the confines of a murder mystery, you can. And if you want to level up again, you'll find it references subtly often the works of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, of Thomas Hobbes, of Karl Marx, all these philosophers that you know, their ideas are living within Freeborne, and often there's a huge interplay between them and a conflict between them. With human nature and free will at the heart of it. Of course, it won't escape many people that Freeborne is a play on words. The town in which it is set is called Freeborne. You know, Bourne is a very common suffix for towns in Sussex in the south of England. But it's about, are we born free? What are we? You know, in our state of nature, are we born to be what we are?
Okay, very cool. Now, I asked you that question about the 30 years of writing, whether it was stories, poetry, journalism, all that stuff, for two reasons. Number one, I wanted to talk to you about what we just talked about, what you learned, what your lessons were. But then also, I wanted to ask, looking over this backlog of writing that you have, you said 3 novels that weren't published and all these other things. Do you ever like get done writing something and you look at it and you go, yeah, that's going to be just for me. This is, I wrote this for me. You know, whether you change your mind later and share it or not, how often does that happen?
I think in a way you always write for yourself. I write what I like to read. And, you know, some of my earlier novels were literary fiction. One of them was a magic realist novel, which, you know, borrowed influences from Salman Rushdie and from Gabriel Garcia Marquez, but it sort of wrapped that up in with hopefully some page turning elements. I always like to bend genres a little bit if I can. But I think ultimately you always have to write for yourself. If you're not writing for yourself, then you know, you can't really expect other people to enjoy what you're writing if you're not enjoying it yourself. I just hope that people don't find my mind so weird that they're going to go, "What the hell has he written? Why would I ever read that?" But we'll see. I'd love to hear what you think when you finished it.
No, for sure, yeah. That's a great answer, and honestly, I think the same thing applies to most everything you do. If you're making some form of art that you're either sharing with the world or keeping for yourself, I think you have to do it for yourself first and foremost, and then you have to hope that other people will. I always say that I always kind of hope that people like my crazy. So, that's just kind of where I'm at on things. But, I do this because I enjoy it, but I also do it and I go out and talk to people that I would want to talk to and that I would be interested in talking to based on, like for you, when your agent and I started talking, it was because, and I went, oh yeah, I'd like to talk with him because he's got a kind of a cool background. I'd like to pick his brain a little bit on a few topics. And then, there's a book involved and all these other things, but that's kind of the purpose and, pace behind this is that, I mean, every guest that's ever been on my show is because it's not just because, well, I have free time and I could use some content for my show. I'd rather rerun an old episode than sit down with somebody that I was disinterested in
Well,
speaking to.
I'm honored, and if I see when this goes out, when it's meant to go out, you've rerun an old episode, I'll know that I've just
yeah, it gets into the editing. You know what? No, we're just gonna skip it. We'll just show a picture online of him holding up his book. No, that's not the case here at all. All right, so I talked to you earlier about how I like to know why people do what they do and all those other things. But here's another question that kind of goes along that same line, and I'm very curious to see what your thoughts are on this because of being a novelist. So, what are you reading or listening to that you think everybody else should know about?
Well, I mean, I recently read. I mean, everyone's read it. I think I recently read The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, which is a thriller, and it has a shocking twist, and a twist that I don't think has been done before. And I read it after I'd written Freebourne, and I read it because I wanted to find out how other people approach twists, and I just thought it was refreshing. In the way that twist was approached, and it's now gone completely viral. It's one of the best-selling thrillers out there, and I think it's a result of everyone just going and talking about that twist. And I'm not going to give it away, but I think a lot of your readers will probably have read it already.
Sure.
But I think it's just it's amazing. I love it when in fiction, and it's one of the reasons why I put such a big twist into Freeborn. But I love it in fiction. Again, going back to I'm writing what I want to read. I love it in fiction when people just completely pull the rug from under your feet, and everything you go in there expecting. You think, I feel safe within this genre. I know even if loads of people are getting killed, you still feel safe as a reader because you expect loads of people to get killed. In a murder mystery, and then something happens, and you go, wow, okay, I didn't expect that to happen. But it just sort of changes your perception about everything you've read up until that point. And that's the feeling I got with The Silent Patient. And I'm glad I read it after writing Freeborn, but I was just, I found I quite enjoyed the parallels there. So absolutely should get into that. And what else have I really enjoyed lately? Well, I've been really been enjoying. I have to say, I don't think you asked me what I was watching, but I've really been enjoying Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. I have to say, it's a fantastic return to form. I think
I agree.
And Star Trek is something that subtly the thread of Star Trek, which subtly runs through Freeborn. I said it's not about spaceships and all that kind of stuff, starships, but the morals of Star Trek are very important to our central character. Harry Coulson, who lives his life by 7 rules, which are all borrowed from the geek culture of his childhood. And rule number 1 for him is the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or in this case, the one. And that governs his entire character. This sort of spot-like utilitarianism governs his entire character to the point that if he discovers a body and everyone thinks he did it, but he still tries to help. He's always trying to help. And I just think that I love, with Strange New Worlds, I love the optimism that has come back into Star Trek again. You know, I love the darkness of Deep Space Nine, but I love the optimism back in Star Trek again. And it's just, you know, and I think, you know, growing up watching Star Trek, particularly the Next Generation, I just felt that, you know, if everyone watched Star Trek, then the world would be a better place. Those are the sorts of morals you can build societies on.
Oh, I agree. You know, it's funny because, you know, mentioning Star Trek, because I grew up as a guy who avoided Star Trek like the absolute plague. I was such a big Star Wars fan, and I'm still a huge Star Wars fan. But in the last couple of years, I've gotten into Star Trek. And, you know, as I've said in other interviews, the thing I love about Star Trek, when you look at the morals and the society building and the social interactions between different groups, it gives you a sense of hope for where we're at now and where humanity could go, what it could be in the future. And very rarely have I ever shut off an episode of anything Star Wars related and gone, boy, that's really going to make me think about how I see the world.
Mm.
And I can say that with Star Trek, that's happened far more times than I ever thought it would happen. Or, you know, whether I was watching the original series, TNG, whatever, even with Strange New Worlds, there's been a couple times where I've shut it off. All right, I really got to think about how this affects my life moving forward.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, Star Trek, Star Wars, I love them both, but you get different things out of them, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's you know, I think for a lot of us who are Star Wars fans, we like the action, we like the pew pews and the laser swords, and it's all fun and games until somebody loses a hand from their father. You know,
I can't walk into a supermarket without trying to use the Force.
Oh, absolutely. No, there's a t-shirt going around that says, if I had the Force, 100% chance of me using it inappropriately. And I'm like, yeah, that'd be me. I'd be like moving things with my mind. Yeah. So yeah. All right. Oh, very cool. I like both your suggestions for reading and watching. Strange New Worlds has been on my heavy watch list as well. So I'm very excited about where that's headed and how that's going to finally end up lining up with TOS. They're seem to be doing a good job of lining all that up. So, all right, Salman, last thing, I got to ask you a silly question. So the basis of this question comes from one of our team members here. Her name is Kathleen. She and her daughter were out about walking, and somebody asked her daughter, who was about 5 at the time, I do believe, 5.5, somewhere in there, asked her daughter this question, but did not ask Kathleen. And Kathleen was like, well, that's just rude. You should never age out of this question. So that question is, Salman Shaheen, what's your favorite dinosaur?
Oh, it's a T-Rex, definitely. And I can answer that without even pausing to think.
Yeah, there was zero hesitation.
I've got a 3-year-old, and I've got him into dinosaurs, you know, and and he loves all the dinosaurs, but he just keeps coming back to the T-Rex. And I didn't even tell him it was my favorite dinosaur, but he keeps coming back. It's just, they look bloody cool, don't they? You know. And you know, I keep going back to rewatching Jurassic Park. The first, all the others are terrible, but the first Jurassic Park is one of the best films ever made. Sure. I will fight anyone and die on that hill over that. Every other Jurassic Park that's come afterwards is abysmal, but the first one is brilliant. And it's just that moment when the T-Rex escapes is one of the best pieces of cinema. That's never been replicated ever since. All the CGI that you get now, exactly. And all the CGI that you get now doesn't look as good as that, you know, 1990s film animatronics. Just brilliant. And, you know, and I was a kid when that came out, and I've loved T-Rexes ever since.
I love that there was zero hesitation there. Have you guys ever watched the movie Meet the Robinsons from Disney?
No, I've not.
Okay. Great Disney animated movie. It was great for families. You know, absolutely adore that movie. There's a dinosaur in there. I don't want to spoil it for you, but it may or may not happen to be a T-Rex. And you should probably watch that with your son. I think you both would get a kick out of it.
I'll go downstairs and put it on for him now.
Yeah, it's a good show. It's called Meet the Robinsons. Absolutely adore that movie. So, all right. Salman, thank you so much for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go to find out more about you, your work, or anything that you've got coming up?
Cool. Well, I've got a website, salmanshaheen.com. You can go there. You can find out a lot about what I do in politics, in some of my articles in journalism. You can find out a bit more about Freebourne. Freebourne is available anywhere you can get books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It has become a bestseller on Amazon.com and Amazon.co.uk and a few other countries. So, if you want to help it along in the charts, please do go to Amazon. It is available for pre-order now. And I'd love to hear what you think about it when you get it.
All right. Very cool. All right. We'll make sure to put those notes down in the show notes down below so that people can check out your work as well. Now, hey guys, if you haven't already, this seems like a prime time to remind you that the most important free thing that you can do, that's right, free, costs you this many's, no George Washington's, it costs you nothing. The most important thing you can do to help us to continue to grow is to click that like and follow button here on YouTube. Doing so helps us get more amazing guests like Salman Shaheen today to come in and have these conversations and give you something to think about on your way home. So please consider following the show here on YouTube. It helps us out more than I could ever really say. And be sure to go check out Salman's work as well. There's a lot of cool things that he's working with, and you can find that all on his website. Link down below in show notes. So thank you to everyone for watching and or listening. Thank you to Salman Shaheen for being a guest on this here podcast today. And may the force be with you as you continue to live long and prosper. Goodbye.
Copyright 2025 FSF Podcast. Reference to any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by FSF Podcast. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@fsfpodcast.com.